Stop the Violence podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, and that is my mom, Suzanne Robertson.
Hey, hello everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy Yule. Hope you're spending a lovely, peaceful time with your family, not eating animals.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk about Slaughterhouse Vigils. What are they? Why we do them?
So, Slaughterhouse Vigils, what is that? It's where we go to bear witness for the animals that are transported in the animal agriculture industry. Many of the trucks at the specific slaughterhouse we do vigil at in Newark, New Jersey, American Halal Slaughterhouse, come from Canada and different parts of the country. They're transported with no food, no water, on top of each other in their own feces, their own urine, just the most abhorrent conditions you can possibly imagine. So people say, well, why would you do that? Why would you put yourself through that? As a vegan activist, you want to minimize the suffering that you're actually exposed to. And that's a true statement. The issue is this. There are so many people who just really are so desensitized, so completely just disconnected, taken in by the normalized violence that they really don't understand. I know I didn't. For so long, I had no idea. I mean, obviously I knew, but there was no connection between going into the store, picking up that piece of animal flesh, quote, meat, end quote, that was packaged. It was all full of red dye. It was all tidy looking and completely disconnected that flesh used to belong to a being that was sentient, that had a family, that loved, that didn't want to die. So going here, you look at these animals' eyes, you see them looking at you. They're terrified of us. We try to give them water. Sometimes they're too afraid to even take the water. But if you could just see these animals and see what they go through, they tremble, they cry. The cows literally moo out, crying in this most horrible, just absolutely heart-wrenching way, because they know what's going to happen. They know what's on the other side. They can smell the blood. They can definitely sense what's happening, and the fear is unbelievable. So going and bearing witness to this and getting the footage to show people what the animals go through, what it is like to be an animal that is bred into existence, forcefully bred into existence, enslaved and tortured its entire life, and then transported in the most rude and crude way in its final hours of life to a slaughterhouse to be hung upside down, have its throat slit open, bled out in front of all of its friends and family, and then cut into little compartmentalized pieces to become, quote, food for us. It's absolutely the most barbaric and disgusting Neanderthal behavior. It's like we've learned so many things. We've come so far in our lives and hopefully made some more intelligent, compassionate choices. And this is the one thing that's still so normalized. Nobody really fights for animals the way that the way that the vegan activists do. And we're called crazy. We're called extreme. We're called born again vegans. We're forcing our agenda on people, when the reality of it is we just want to try and bring awareness, so maybe one less animal will have its throat slit that day to become, quote, dinner.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that we're so crazy, but all we're doing is really just speaking up for a cause of justice, a matter of justice. And we truly believe that if more non-vegans would actually have the balls, or the pussy actually, because pussy's stronger than balls, if
what?
more non-vegans would have the pussy strength to be able to actually go to these slaughterhouses and see these animals on the trucks as they're literally waiting for their death outside of the building, and actually look into their eyes, we believe that there would be a lot more people going vegan. Because it's one thing to tell people, like, oh, in animal agriculture, this and this and this happens, but it's a totally other thing when you actually arrive on the scene and actually face in person, not just looking at a screen where we're so desensitized. We see violence on our phone screens and on movies all the time.
Non-stop.
It doesn't mean that much, but when you're actually there seeing it in person, it's a whole other experience.
Okay, so we've been doing Vigil a little bit over a year now with the Newark Animal Save movement. Carol Rodriguez and Hashem, what's his last name?
I don't remember.
Sorry, Hashem, we're dumb. Started this, and again, the whole concept of it is to bring people face to face with the animals, to have them look the animals in their eyes. I mean, I know a few people who were kind of on the fence, or maybe they were plant-based, or maybe vegetarian, because a lot of these animals are dairy cows, which are spent because, they can only be raped, forcefully inseminated, and have their children taken away and then milked for so many years before they just become non-productive. To see that and to witness that, if you don't immediately change on the spot, not being vegan is one of your least of your problems, because it literally means you just have no empathy and compassion. And once you lose your empathy and compassion, I don't know what to say. I mean, the inability to feel empathy, and there's a huge difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is more like, oh, you lost your mother. Oh, well, yeah, that's terrible. I lost my mom too. Whereas empathy is more like, oh, you lost your mother. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do for you? If you want to come over and have some coffee and just cry, I'll hold you. I'll hold space for you. Huge difference. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people immediately, when they're faced with feeling empathetic, go right to the sympathy piece, which is just not the same. So the reason that we go here is we want to bear witness again. We want to bring the truth out. We want to show people what really goes on. It's not anything like what they say on the carton of milk or on the packages in the store, or these pictures of these happy farm animals that are frolicking around. It's nothing like it. These animals are terrified. They don't want to die. It's really, really life-changing.
Yeah, and another thing about empathy is also the ability to imagine yourself in another being's position, and you're a lot more able to imagine like what it might be like to be sitting on this truck waiting for your death when you're seeing it face to face.
100%, right. Otherwise, you're so far removed from it, and you can. It's a little easier for you to keep your cognitive dissonance when you really are not witnessing it firsthand. So
yeah, exactly. And this is not just for Newark, New Jersey. They do this at slaughterhouses all over the world. So in order to find a vigil near you, you just visit thesavemovement.org, and then you can find one near you. And also, you can also start your own if there isn't an existing one in your area already. So, Mom, do you have any particular memories or experiences that just stuck out to you from attending these vigils?
So obviously the first time is super traumatizing. You think you're prepared for it, but as soon as you see the animals, you really can never prepare yourself for that kind of fear, that kind of, just absolute terror that is in their eyes, and just the way that they shake. And it's really indescribable. Like, words don't do it any justice. It's horrific, honestly. It's absolutely horrible. But then you start going more and more often, and I feel like sometimes I get so focused on, getting coverage footage so that I can try and share it with other people, so that hopefully one of these, quote, animal lovers will see this and make the connection between these beautiful cows, these beautiful sheep, and their own dog, cat at home. So you just kind of go into that mode, and maybe you're looking through your phone instead of looking at the animals, and it becomes a little more bearable for you. Then just when you're like starting to be like, you know, I can do this, you know, I got to get the footage or whatever. You have a situation like we did in late August, September, when we went to Vigil, and I'll never forget this specific time. Right before the animals were getting... I'm going to get all verklempt.
It's okay.
Right before the animals were getting ready to be taken off of the truck, we were all, you know, trying to give them last moments of compassion and kindness, a little bit of water. And this specific cow started crying out in such a way that it just literally broke my heart. I've never heard any animal sound like that. It sounded like her heart was breaking, literally. It just was unbelievable. Alicia has some audio of that and some video. I'm sure you could post it.
I'll upload that actually shortly after this episode comes out, so that I'll just put it on my YouTube channel, which is Alicia Demi, ALISIA space DMI, and it'll just be like a 2-minute video of exactly what she's talking about.
Just a little bit of a trigger warning, honestly, especially if you're an empath like myself. Just know that this is going to be like really hard to hear. Like, I can't even tell you how hard it's going to be to hear. I mean, you heard me just a couple minutes ago just trying to speak about it, and immediately my mind goes there. I can see that cow. I can see that look in her eyes and just that horrible pain she felt. I don't know if she was feeling for one of her family members or friends that was getting offloaded, or if that was fear for herself. I feel like as a mother, that was more of her feeling pain for another cow. So obviously animals feel empathy as well. But yeah, just be ready for it, because it's absolutely intense. After that, I had to take a couple of weeks off from going back to Vigil, because I think I took at least 2 off from that, because it was just so intense for me and so horrible.
I know for me, I can really think back on my first Vigil. I drove with a few friends, a few girls. We were all like laughing and having fun on the way there. But the way that everything just shifts when you arrive at a slaughterhouse and you park and you get out of the car, like all of that, like laughing and stuff on the drive is just, you forget it even existed. And especially the first time I went to a Vigil, I just felt like I was walking into a funeral. Like the only feeling I could really compare it to, not that it's exactly the same, but the only feeling I could compare it to was like how I felt walking into my grandma's funeral. Not to say that like human deaths and animal deaths are equal, but it's just a similar vibe.
Well, energetically, death is death. So
yeah, exactly. And I just remember like my face just got really hot with tears, and the tears just like fell out. There was no way that I could stop them, you know what I mean? And it was just really interesting. I just felt it in my soul, and I remember like locking eyes with this particular sheep, and I could like still see the image of this in my head. And it's just really interesting the way they look at you, and the way that this particular sheep looked at me was kind of like a like why aren't you doing something about this? Or
that's hard.
Like or kind of like a your human race is the reason I'm in here, like kind of a look. And of course that's just my interpretation, but
yeah, but it's amazing how much can be like, you know, like so much feeling can be sort of sent to you just through a look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, anyone who has a dog or cat who isn't just a complete asshole to their dog or cat and like cares about them at least to some level knows that dogs and cats, like especially dogs, have different facial expressions and emotions and moods, and they can pick up on and tell when you're sad and when you're upset. Like I know my cat at home whenever I've had really bad crying spells, like he'll come and lay on my chest, and you would think that people would understand that other animals like cows and sheep and pigs are similar to that, in the sense that a lot of them, they are capable of like connecting with you in pretty much exactly the same way. And so if they're capable of connecting with you in that way, then imagine how capable they are of suffering. Like if you had dogs and cats on these slaughterhouse trucks, they would be shaking, they would be yelping, like they would have their tail in between their legs. So it's ridiculous that some people claim that animals are not able to suffer, or like something I hear a surprising amount is, how do you know they don't want to die? You're not the animal. And that's just so ridiculous.
What a ludicrous thing to say. Like, what sentient being is like, well, today's a good day to die? I mean, I don't even understand that. I mean, that's just some nonsense that they're saying to themselves to make themselves feel better. I mean, let's be honest. If this truck was full of cats and dogs, maybe even rabbits, honestly, people feel a little more empathy for rabbits than they do for, cows and chickens, pigs, sheep. I've heard so many people refer to them as livestock. I don't even know what that is supposed to mean. I mean, I know what it means, obviously, the definition, but that's the stupidest comment I've ever made. Like, these aren't livestock. These are animals. These are animals that we breed, that we create just to torture them, enslave them, and then use them as commodities. Animals are not products. They're not commodities.
Yeah, because stock is like, you think of stocking a shelf with inanimate objects, with
100%.
items.
Yeah, absolutely. Another
thing you'd be really surprised that we both hear constantly all the time is that plants feel pain. And of course, obviously they don't.
Go cut some carrots right now. Cut their heads off. Fuck those carrots.
Yeah, I talked to a carrots rights activist doing outreach the other day. She looked me dead in my eye sockets and was like, "Don't you know carrots feel pain? What about the plants?" And it's hard, because then you have to kind of like talk to them like a child and be like...
Well, sad part is she was serious. And
yeah,
she was like not
so
even
many people
joking. She was really... I mean, mind you, she was also wearing a fur trim on her coat. This was in New York City at VAA, right?
Right.
That's a Vegans Activist Alliance. We do outreach there. But yeah, she was completely serious. When she came up to Alicia, she literally was not joking. I mean, because I did a double take when she said that. I was like, she's kidding, right? Like, she's just trying to like role play, or I mean, I honestly had no idea that she could possibly be serious with that conversation.
Yeah, and she was an older woman, so it's not like she was a kid or something.
I don't think she was purposely trolling. I think she was just that delusional.
Yeah, exactly. She believed, like, with all her heart that carrots feel pain, but if you don't have a brain or a central nervous system, you don't have those nerve endings, and you can't feel pain.
Clearly, there's a huge difference between photosynthesis and a plant, or some sort of vegetable turning towards the sunlight, or
right.
like sunflowers do. Obviously, that's a thing that happens, that scientifically has been proven, but that doesn't mean they feel anything, or they're doing it because they have emotions or a brain. It's literally just a scientific reaction.
Yeah, because there's no purpose, if you look at evolution-wise, for them to feel pain, because the purpose of pain is to be able to move away from whatever's happening.
To cause you to flee.
And a tree can't get up and walk away, so for it
Neither
to feel...
can carrots, lady.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So ridiculous. So like when you think about these kinds of comments, and then you go to a vigil and you come back from a vigil and you see these animals, it's just so like ridiculous. And by the way, if anyone ever like tries to go down this route in arguing, ask them, and this is from Earthling Ed, but ask them if they were driving a car and there's a dog and there's a flower bed, and you have to either like run over the dog to save the flower bed or run over the flower bed to save the dog, what would you choose?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so obvious. Like, if
flower bed, of course. Fuck that dog. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous on it. It's and like I said, this woman was serious. There are people who say that nonsense just because they are trolls and they have nothing better to do than to troll vegans. It seems to be a really popular thing to do.
Or just really like stupid, honestly.
I mean, it's possible that they're really.
I shouldn't say stupid. I should just say
unaware, uninformed,
very misguided.
Yeah, by a flashlight, by the way.
But it's just infuriating when you're at a vigil and then you remember there's people out there that are saying plants feel pain. I just wish these same people would come to a vigil and look these animals in the eye and realize how stupid and just mean they are for saying stupid things like that. And vegan diets kill less plants anyway, so all these plants rights activists, by their own logic, should be vegan because there's a lot more plants that have to die in the process of feeding animals that are raised to be killed. Another thing to keep in mind about these animals that have arrived on trucks to these vigils is that they're not legally required to be given water for 36 hours by law in the US. So they are really dying of thirst, and we've actually even seen them, like the dairy cows, suck on each other's udders because they're so desperate for water or for anything.
Probably one of the few times they were actually allowed to nurse, ironically, right before death. Seeing that one baby cow, or not even maybe a teenager, sucking on that other mother cow's teats was crazy. And again, we've also seen them, as you recall, licking the rainwater off the side of the truck.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, especially when it's hot. It's one extreme or the other. It's very rarely is it comfortable temperature.
Yeah, and there's this viral video that everyone thinks is so cute, and it's gone super viral, of this dairy calf living in a hutch on a dairy farm who's sticking their tongue out for snowflakes, and people are like, oh, that's so cute, ha ha ha, but they don't realize that calf was taken away from their mother and never got to have the milk of their mother because humans are drinking the milk of the mother, and they're isolated, they're in these hutches. People are just very blind to share that around, thinking, oh, how cute, ha ha ha, not realizing that cow not only is going to grow up to be impregnated repeatedly, have their baby taken away, but will also be spit and slaughtered at the end of it. So does that sound cute? Another thing that people never think about is that a lot of the times these animals are already dead on arrival when they get to the slaughterhouse. And so now Keegan, my boyfriend, is here with us too. So I just thought I would tag him in here because he's been to a vigil before my mom and I started going to vigils where he saw those dead on arrival cows.
Yeah, so the vigil that we're specifically talking about is at a halal slaughterhouse, which basically halal means that these animals have to be conscious and alive when they're being killed. So the one day that I was there was a total of 3 cows that were dead upon arrival. DOA, I think they call it. There's actually a little acronym for it. But seeing as this was a halal slaughterhouse and they were dead, they could not be processed into food for people. So they literally just dragged them over to the one side of the facility. It's a very small facility. And they just started hacking them up right in front of us. There's many videos showing all this stuff, but they basically just hacked them up, took their heads off, and then they just put them right in the truck that goes to the rendering plants to be, whatever, dog food, whatever else.
And you've been doing vigils longer than my mom and I have, so you've also gone to a lot of pig vigils specifically. I've only gone to 2 of them with you, but all I've been able to see is just pigs on the truck making the turn. I haven't really been able to go up to them and see them. But do you have any stories about those kinds of vigils with the pigs specifically?
Yeah, unfortunately, the place that, there's no fortunate way to talk about any of this stuff, but the place that we go to in Hatfield, Pennsylvania, Clemens Food Group, they, there's a stop sign that they stop at, so that's the only time that we have. So we only have, a few seconds with them. But, even those few seconds, you run up to the truck and they're all panting like crazy because pigs don't sweat. I don't know if people know that, but these animals are, at least, I mean, I don't know, at least, but it's a struggle for them just to be in there and in the heat and seeing all this day after day. I mean, I did this it's been over 2 years now that I've been going to vigils. And this place, believe it or not, kills 10,000 pigs a day on average.
12,000.
12,000, excuse me. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's more. But yeah, I mean, the one day I was at another vigil and randomly a whole truck full of pigs showed up, and this was at a cow vigil. And it was just as bad. They were panting. You could literally stick your hand in the truck and it was considerably warmer. But this is just day-to-day life for them. I mean, some of these pigs, they are raised in, concrete pens they never even see the light of day until the last day when they get on their truck to ride to their death. But
right, so the whole point of this, we're trying to make very clear to you, is that it's one extreme or the other. It's either ridiculously hot and these animals are getting dehydrated, they're just suffering this extreme heat, and the ambient temperature outside of the truck obviously is a lot cooler than inside of the truck. And the other extreme is the bitter cold. I mean, we've gone to vigils. I remember a few vigils that were in like February, March, that it was like minus 20 degrees outside. And Alicia and I would have to keep getting back into the car for a few minutes just so that we didn't like actually start to, lose feeling in our fingers and our
I would say like 10 degrees, not minus.
Oh, 10 degrees?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Probably felt
but
like
just
minus.
absolutely freezing cold, and that's only a few moments, 20 minutes at a time that we would be out there, by the truck or waiting for the truck. These animals were in transit in that same exact temperature, just bitter cold, the wind blowing, just total extremes. No caring about the animals. I think that you guys were mentioning that there is a rule that about however many hours, 36 I think it is. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that already, but yeah, they're legally allowed to be in transport for 36 hours without stopping or being given water. And in the winter, they have like icicles on their faces. And Keegan was making a point to me earlier over dinner that no matter how cold or hot or uncomfortable you might feel in your car or outside or in your home, you have to realize that there's an animal at all times in all places, right? You said something about that?
yeah, I mean, basically what I'm trying to, point out to people is, we sit here, we're sitting in front of a fire, there's people that are sitting inside their nice air-conditioned house. But, we struggle just with that little bit of like, oh, I'm too cold, let me get a shirt on, or like, oh, now I'm better now, like I just took a nice warm shower or something. But, every second of every day of every year, there's an animal in a truck on their way to their death that has no ability, no control, no ability to do anything, to get no relief. So just remember that when you think that, oh, I'm really cold, but if you still eat animals, you're putting animals through hell that are in a lot worse condition than any human is.
And that's all over the world, and there are places in the world that actually do get to negative 30 degrees, like Minnesota and up north, and then there's places in the world that get well over 100 degrees. I mean, they're still having meat, so they still have animals in those areas that are suffering even worse from just the temperature extremes. So Keegan, are there any other experiences from vigils that maybe you've gone to without me that you remember that stick out to you?
Yeah, I think there's one, honestly, that's sticking out to me pretty clear. It was at a vigil at a place called JBS, which is one of the biggest meat producers in the world. They're based out of Brazil. I'm not sure exactly what JBS stands for, but basically they had, there's this area of the slaughterhouse where they back in the trucks, and they unload, which were dairy cows at this time. And there was a tiny little hole that it looked like either was, disintegrated from weathering or just somebody that pried it open. But it's actually closed now. But what I could see through there was pretty astonishing. These cows getting off these trucks could literally barely walk off the truck. So to give you, to give you a little bit of context here, like these animals are coming from wherever, right? And they have to stand on their feet for however many hours, and then they have to try to get off. If they can't even walk off the truck, imagine how excruciating it is to stand, let alone, be on metal at all. I mean, these cows are hooved animals. They're not meant to be on metal. But to see them just walk off and literally barely be able to stand, it's just ridiculous. That was just one thing that I never can get out of my head.
So, of course, I strongly encourage you, if you've never been to a vigil, whether you're vegan or not, to please go to a vigil near you or start your own vigil group. But furthermore, it's really good to bring friends and people that you know. So, Mom, do you have any stories or inputs about that?
I remember the first vigil I was ever at, and I didn't really know a lot of the activists there very well. It was when we first started going, and I just remember you're not ever prepared for the emotion that you're going to feel. And I remember all of the activists coming over and comforting me, and just strangers hugging you because they know what it's like. There was recently a new activist that had come to Vigil for the first time, Rebecca, and she was ill prepared for the emotion that she was going to go through, and I was able to pay it forward a little bit and kind of comfort her. You have no idea until you get there, and I encourage every single person to experience it at least once in their life, because it's literally life-changing. If you walk away from that and you're still able to partake in any animal products, their secretions, any of this kind of stuff, then being non-vegan is the least of your actual worries. You probably really need either an exorcist or you need to get medical help from a shrink, because there's something really not right in your brain.
Yeah, and please bring your non-vegan friends and family members.
If they'll go, because a lot of them are just oh no, I don't want to see that. Oh my God, why would I want to see that?
Yeah, so, exactly. Drag
them. That's how
them.
they all talk.
Because we know someone, Jamie, who brought her good friend, longtime friend, to Vigils, and he wasn't vegan, but he went vegan, I'm pretty sure,
on the spot.
After going to Vigils, though, right?
Yeah, well, that morning, it was Zachy. That morning, he basically was like, I'm done with this, and it's been 4 and change months now, and he's totally fucking vegan now.
Yeah, so it just goes back to that seeing it in person and making it real, because you can follow an activist and see all their posts and learn the facts.
Yeah, they were friends for years.
Exactly.
I think.
But it's a whole other level when you actually see it in person. It makes it real. Not only does it make it real, but you can't smell smells through a screen. If you smelt a slaughterhouse, any slaughterhouse really, you would not feel hungry anymore for meat, dairy, eggs. That's gonna start making your stomach churn. And I've been to a live market type of poultry place in Newark, and I only went to it once. I just went with a couple of girls, and it wasn't even a vigil. We were doing the Newark vigil at American Halal, and then we decided impromptu to drive to this place where they have a bunch of birds in kind of like a store, and they kill them there. The customers go in and purchase, and they kill them there.
It looks like a pet store.
Yeah, it looks like a pet store, and it's in a really shitty area too, because they would never put these kinds of places in nice areas, because the smell is putrid. It's disgusting. It's probably the worst smell I've ever had in my life, because we arrived to this place because we noticed a truck on the road full of birds, and we went there because of that, and the truck arrived, and we went up to try to get footage. Of course, we couldn't really, because the worker started screaming at us immediately, but the smell was so bad that I couldn't even get up to it. I was gagging. I was about to throw up right there on the sidewalk. I can't even explain the smell. Like, because it's probably the closest I've gotten to the actual, like, slaughter. Because in Newark, you can't, it's, like, gated and it's further back and it's inside the building. But here, it seems like they were just, like, doing it right there outside or something. Not that we could see it, but the smell, I will never forget that smell. Like, I don't even know how you could be around that without a face covering. And to think that these workers are exposed to that every day is unbelievable.
So just one more thing to add about the smell. I know this is just from personal experience, but so the slaughterhouse that I was talking about earlier, Clemens Food Group in Hatfield, Pennsylvania, it's right near a high school called Christopher Dock. I think they switched the name out, but you can smell the slaughterhouse truck from over a mile away, probably. It half mile to a mile away, but that's just something that never leaves you. I mean, it's like I just remember so many times playing soccer, and this was before I was even vegan. Now I remember these things looking back, but I just remember literally playing soccer on like a foggy night, and just literally the smell just hits you right down the street where these 12,000 pigs are being killed every day. Like, imagine living there. Like, there's people that live right on the road there. I don't understand. Suzanne, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say, obviously the smell is always bad outside of the American Halal Slaughterhouse in Newark, but the most, like, the worst experience I had in terms of the smell was specifically one time they were dumping body parts out, and as these barrels go up into the air on the lift truck or whatever and start to dump it into it, the smell that comes off of that is literally like nothing you can ever even imagine. It's like death, shit, blood, all mixed together. It literally takes your breath away. It really like gets you like, you're just like, what the fuck is that? You have no idea what you're smelling. And immediately you feel sick to your stomach, as Alicia said. Your gag reflex hits, and you just can't imagine what it, it's not even describable, the way that it smells. It's indescribable.
Yeah, and why? Because it's their internal organs, their brains. Like, we've seen whole heads. Like, yes. Didn't you see a whole head?
Yes, I have pictures of an entire cow's head. The entire head, like, unbelievably just, like, sitting there like an object and not a being's head.
Yeah, so obviously, as you can tell, we've experienced and seen some really horrible, traumatic, really sad things. And again, you might be wondering, like, why are we putting ourselves through this? Well, it's because we need to show non-vegans and other people who are vegan this so that they can go vegan, and or if they're already vegan, start speaking out for the animals, because it just makes it real, because this stuff is hidden from us. And it is hard. It's like emotionally and spiritually draining and hard to go to these vigils, and sometimes you need to take breaks from them. But even though it is such a dark thing, do you want to add something, Mom?
I was just thinking about a conversation I had recently with Carol Rodriguez, the person who started Newark Animal Save, with Hashem, and her saying that she made a statement that was shocking to me initially, and then after she explained it, I completely understood. She basically was saying that she was so much happier before she went vegan, and what she meant by that is now experiencing what we experience as vegan activists, seeing these things, doing vigil, going to the slaughterhouse, and then still trying to be around people who know these things or have seen these things through us or through other people's activism and continue to make these choices. It makes you really just feel bad about humanity and mankind. And I didn't understand what she was saying, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I mean, you have to really be careful and take care of yourself and give self-care and take breaks and do things to, get your spirit back in order, or restore your mental stability and whatnot, because it makes you really angry and it makes you really kind of hate people, and it makes it makes it difficult. So these people who think we're a bunch of little pansy, I mean, yes, we're about love. Yes, we're about doing the least amount of harm possible. But if you think it is weak, or it takes anything less than a hard ass to be vegan, especially a vegan activist, you're out of your mind. Because you're every single day, everywhere you go, you're faced with this kind of stuff. You have to make choices about spending holidays with family. I personally will not sit down with anybody who's eating animals, and that's been hard for me. I've lost friends. So, it's life-changing. These vigils, going vegan, but specifically the vigils, I think, are life-changing.
Yeah, and we don't hate people. We just hate what they're doing. We just hate, that they're still supporting this. And it's hard, like you said, to be around family and friends that still choose to pay for these things, because they look at you and they're like, oh, they just want me to have the same diet as them. But it's not a diet. Like, veganism is not a diet. And yeah, but so vigils can be really hard and really emotionally hard, but we try to still make them positive, of course, with the intention of sharing awareness and sharing these stories of these animals. And just something real quick that just popped up into my head. Once I was at a vigil and Susan was talking or videoing. I think it was Susan, and she was saying
Susan of Alf.
Yeah, and she was saying, if you were on these trucks, I would be here giving comfort to you too, and I would be here documenting this for you too. And it's like, at least these faces and these animals don't go unnoticed and in the dark like so many billions and trillions of other animals that stories never get shared. At least the ones that we see, their stories are getting shared to mean something.
Right, that's the whole reason we call it bearing witness. We're bearing witness to their suffering, to their conditions, to the entire process.
Yeah, and so what we try to do after the animals are unloaded and we're comforting each other and stuff, after that kind of passes a little bit, we kind of just gather up in a group and say just some positive words, in honor of the animals, because we're paying respects to the lives that are being taken as well.
Right.
And then we try to just make it more of a positive thing and take action, and we'll go and hold signs at the slaughterhouse right after that to try and make it like a taking action,
Which is on a very busy road, by the way.
Yes.
So many people see our signs. We get a lot of positive responses from that, I'd have to say, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that this is a slaughterhouse right in their neighborhood or on the way to their job. It's, it's en route. And when they see all of us standing out there, 20 of us standing out there with signs, I'm me, not meat. And these it makes them think, what's going on here? And it just brings even more awareness. And it spins it into more of a positive ending, if you will, for something that is so difficult and so traumatizing, to then try and do something that's a little positive, bringing more awareness, doing a little bit of activism, and holding the signs and whatnot is, I think, a nice way to end the day.
All right, so I think that's enough kind of depressing content for one day. So I want to thank my guests, who turned into two guests, my mom and my boyfriend.
Do you mean me and my split personality? Okay.
So, Mom, do you want to say your Instagram name for anyone to follow you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely follow me. Share my videos of the visuals that we do, the outreach that we do, as well as the grocery store disruptions. My Instagram is veganzanne. That's VEGANZANNE. My Facebook, of course, is Suzanne Robertson on Facebook. So, yeah.
And do you want to share yours, Keegan?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for having us on here. I think it's a really important discussion to have, even though it's insanely hard for us to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Brings up a lot of memories. But yeah, so I'm Keegan, and my Instagram handle is Keegan Dare Vegan, DER. The was taken. But yeah. So that's it for me, and Facebook is Keegan Peterson, but mostly Instagram stuff. But
yeah, and of
I think
course
the other two women here have a lot more content, but if you want some some different stuff.
Oh, before I forget, I want to shout out Cave Light Films. A friend of ours works for them, and they have a mini documentary about 10 to 15 minutes specifically about vigils at Newark that's gone viral. It's been picked up by Now This on Facebook. So I can...
Jordan, right?
Well, the films is Cave Light Films, so if you go to their Facebook page, you will find that video.
Right, and your friend's name is Jamie Logan.
Oh, yeah, my friend's name is Jamie Logan. She also has a good podcast called Under the Vegfluence. And then my Instagram is just Alicia Demi, ALISIADEMI. I've got a YouTube channel, as I've probably said before, which is ALISIA space DEMI. And any final thoughts about vigils? Any final comments?
No, just try and get to one as soon as you can and
Yeah.
share your experience and share it on social media.
And again, that's the savemovement.org to find one near you. And of course, you can also contact them to make your own in your area if there isn't one existing already.
Yeah, and just remember, ignorance is bliss, but just because you don't look and you close your eyes doesn't mean that any animals aren't getting killed. So
100%, and they keep screaming way after you look away.
Boom. All right, we're going to end it there. Thank you and have a good day.